Ever wonder how one person could end a century of brutal civil war and usher in over 250 years of peace? That person was Tokugawa Ieyasu, the architect of Japan's legendary Edo period. His story isn't just about epic battles and samurai showdowns, it's a masterclass in patience, strategy, and the power of long-term thinking. Stay with us as we uncover the secrets of the man who outlasted everyone to build a nation. To understand Ieyasu, you first need to understand the world he was born into. Imagine a Japan shattered into 100 warring pieces. This was the Sengoku period, the age of warring states. For over a century, powerful feudal lords, called daimyo, fought endlessly for land and power. Alliances were made and broken in a single day, and betrayal was just another tool in the box. It was a chaotic, violent, and unforgiving time where survival was the only rule that mattered. This brutal environment was the forge that shaped Tokugawa Ieyasu, teaching him a lesson he would never forget: patience is a weapon. Ieyasu's early life was anything but privileged. Born Matsudera Takechiyo, he spent most of his childhood as a political pawn, a hostage sent to rival clans to secure fragile alliances. First, he was held by the Oda clan, then by the powerful Imagawa. These years must have been incredibly difficult, filled with uncertainty and humiliation. But for Ieyasu, this wasn't just a prison, it was a classroom. He watched the masters of power politics up close, learning about military strategy, court intrigue, and human psychology. While other young nobles might have grown bitter or reckless, Ieyasu cultivated an almost superhuman discipline and a knack for strategic thinking. He learned to swallow his pride, bide his time, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. These experiences taught him that true strength wasn't about winning every fight, but about surviving long enough to win the war. Ieyasu's big break came when he forged an alliance with the most fearsome warlord of the era, Oda Nobunaga. Nobunaga was a force of nature, a brilliant but ruthless general hell-bent on unifying Japan under his iron fist. While Nobunaga launched aggressive campaigns and shocked the nation with his bold tactics, Ieyasu played a much quieter, more calculated game. He supported Nobunaga, yes, but he used the protection of this powerful alliance to focus on his own domain. He strengthened his administration, built up his economy, and, most importantly, secured the unwavering loyalty of his vassals. The contrast between the two leaders was stark. Nobunaga was the blazing fire, consuming everything in his path. Ieyasu was the deep, patient river, slowly but surely carving his own path to power. He understood that spectacular victories were fleeting, but a stable, well-run domain was a foundation for lasting success. But the age of warring states was unpredictable. Oda Nobunaga was betrayed and died, and a new power rose from the ashes, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. A man of humble origins who had risen to become Nobunaga's top general, Hideyoshi finished the job of unifying Japan. Now, Ieyasu faced a critical choice. He was a powerful lord in his own right, perhaps the only one who could truly challenge Hideyoshi. A lesser man might have risked everything in a glorious, but likely fatal, confrontation. Ieyasu, however, was a master pragmatist. He recognized Hideyoshi's overwhelming strength and chose cooperation over conflict. He formally submitted to Hideyoshi, even agreeing to relocate his entire clan to the remote Kanto region, far from his ancestral lands. To many, this looked like a defeat, a public humiliation. But Ieyasu saw it as an opportunity. His new domain, centered on a small fishing village named Edo, had immense potential. While serving Hideyoshi, he quietly built up his new territory, improved infrastructure, and expanded his economic power. He was playing the long game, understanding that sometimes you have to take a step back to make a giant leap forward later. The moment Ieyasu had been waiting for his entire life arrived in the year 1600. After Toyotomi Hideyoshi died, leaving a young heir, the fragile unity he had created shattered. The great lords of Japan split into two massive armies, the Western Army, loyal to the Toyotomi clan, and the Eastern Army, rallied around Tokugawa Ieyasu. The stage was set for a final, decisive showdown. This was the legendary Battle of Sekigahara. But this battle wasn't just won with swords and spears, it was won months before, through Ieyasu's decades of careful planning and diplomacy. He had spent years building relationships, making promises, and exploiting the rivalries within the enemy camp. On the day of the battle, as the two sides clashed, several key commanders from the Western Army suddenly switched sides, just as Ieyasu had planned. The betrayal caused a total collapse, and Ieyasu's Eastern Army won a swift and overwhelming victory. Sekigahara wasn't just a military triumph, it was the ultimate payoff for a lifetime of patience. The long, bloody century of civil war was finally over. With his enemies vanquished, Ieyasu was the undisputed master of Japan. In 1603, the emperor officially granted him the title of Shogun, the highest military authority in the land. This marked the beginning of the Tokugawa shogunate and the Edo period. But Ieyasu did something very clever. Just 2 years later, in 1605, he officially abdicated, passing the title of shogun to his son, Hidetada. This wasn't retirement. Ieyasu continued to rule from behind the scenes, but this move was a stroke of genius. It ensured a smooth, peaceful succession and demonstrated that the shogunate was not just about one man's power, but about establishing a lasting dynasty. He made his new capital in Edo, the small fishing village he had been sent to years before. Under his guidance, Edo began its transformation from a backwater town into a massive political and economic center, the city we now know as Tokyo. Ieyasu's true genius wasn't just in winning battles, but in building a system of peace. To prevent Japan from ever sliding back into civil war, he designed an intricate system of governance. First, he established a centralized feudal system. The daimyo could still rule their own lands, but they were under the shogun's strict supervision. He implemented a policy called Sankin-keitai, or alternate attendance. This required every daimyo to spend every other year in the capital, Edo. Their wives and children, meanwhile, had to live in Edo permanently, essentially as well-treated hostages. This not only kept potential rebels under control but also forced the daimyo to spend vast sums of money on travel, weakening their ability to fund wars. He also established a rigid four-class social structure: samurai, farmers, artisans, and merchants. While this system limited social mobility, it created a predictable and orderly society. This intricate web of control was the foundation for over 2.5 centuries of peace and stability. So, what was Ieyasu's leadership philosophy? It can be summed up in one of his most famous quotes: "Life is like a long journey with a heavy burden. Let thy step be slow and steady, that thou stumble not." He believed that true victory belonged to those who could endure. And like the flashy warlords of his time, he avoided unnecessary risks and valued stability far more than personal glory. He was a master of self-control, never letting emotion cloud his judgment. His leadership style was a blend of strict Confucian principles and down-to-earth pragmatism. His laws were firm, but they were applied consistently, creating a sense of order and justice. And he understood the importance of loyalty, generously rewarding those who served him faithfully. He wasn't a hero in the traditional sense, he was a survivor, a strategist, and a builder. Tokugawa Ieyasu died in 1616, but the system he built would outlive him by centuries. The Tokugawa shogunate ruled Japan for over 260 years, a period known as the Edo period. This was an unprecedented era of peace. Free from constant war, Japan's economy flourished, its population grew, and its culture blossomed in incredible ways, giving us things like kabuki theater and ukiyo-e woodblock prints. While the system eventually became rigid and resistant to change, it allowed Japan to develop a unique and powerful identity, preparing it for its rapid modernization in the 19th century. Ieyasu's legacy isn't just in the castles he built or the battles he won. It's in the generations of Japanese people who lived their lives in peace, all thanks to the foundations he laid. The life of Tokugawa Ieyasu offers us some timeless lessons. First, that patience and endurance can be far more powerful than brute force and aggression. Second, that building strong, lasting systems is more important than achieving individual glory. And finally, that stability itself is a form of strength, creating the environment where society can thrive. Ieyasu wasn't just a conqueror, he was an architect of peace. His story is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the greatest victories don't come from a single, brilliant move, but from a lifetime of quiet perseverance. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the life of one of history's greatest strategists. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history. We'll see you in the next one.